Welcome to the Disabled Podcast, starring your host, Christian Reitz.
Hot dog, let's go!
Welcome to the Disabled Podcast, the show that incorporates disabilities with the magic of Disney. Welcome to episode 3 of season 4, entitled Throwback Disney. Be sure to use our hashtag the Disabled Podcast when sharing this podcast to all of your social media platforms. Now again, that's hashtag the Disabled Podcast when sharing this podcast to all social media platforms. And now, here is your host, Christian Reitz. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Disabled Podcast. Guys, I know it's been a few weeks. It's supposed to come out actually a couple weeks ago. Today is Monday, April 13th, exactly when you're getting this podcast on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. It's been a couple weeks since I've done a podcast, guys. Honestly, I've had some work. Things come up, and then also the pollen got to me a little bit. So that kind of basically made me exhausted. But we are back with another episode of season 4 of the Disabled Podcast. And I thought it would be fun this week to take you on a little bit of a throwback. And I'm going to take you all the way back to a Disney throwback. That's right, we're going to talk about Disney World from all the way back in 2002 and further back than that. Now, of course, Disney in 2002 was different for me in my first trip than it is for some of yours. And so if you have a favorite attraction from either opening day of Magic Kingdom or maybe opening day of Epcot, drop your favorite attraction or show or anything that you remember from your very first Walt Disney World trip in the comments below. So without any further ado, let's get on with the episode. Now, of course, before we can get into the podcast for real and actually start talking about Throwback Disney, of course, I want to direct your attention to the QR code that is on your screen if you're listening and watching on YouTube. But also, I want to direct your attention to the links in the description box below. And what that QR code actually is going to do if you're on YouTube is it's going to take you directly to the Facebook page for the Disabled Podcast. In weeks prior, it's taking you to different things, but unfortunately for some of the episodes, the QR code on those particular type of videos has failed me. So I have made a link that works exclusively for you guys. And of course, if that link doesn't work for you guys, you can always go and click it in the description box below and go find all the stuff you need for the Disabled Podcast, whether that's your favorite streaming platform that we're on right now, the merch store, or you just want to find out more information about the Disabled Podcast and be involved in the updates for the Disabled Podcast that come directly from me. That is your one-stop place for all things the Disabled Podcast. So now, when we talk about Throwback Disney, and we talk about Disney back in the old days, of course, you have Magic Kingdom, you have Hollywood Studios, you have Animal Kingdom, and you have Epcot. Now, for me, back in 2002, which was my very first trip, I was 7 years old, and I remember that was my Make-A-Wish trip. And I've talked about Make-A-Wish Foundations and shared my story in a few episodes in the last few seasons of the podcast. But back in 2002, Disney was just a different era, and even further back than that. Really at the turn of the century is whenever Disney became kind of more updated and started getting more updates to what it is now. So for me, a lot of the updates that I see now were not what they used to be. I mean, I can go to a theme park and see what is in place of say like the Great Movie Ride, which we'll talk about here in a moment, and see as Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So again, Disney in 2002, when I was growing up in Disney and with family trips and all that, was different. So let's take a trip back and let's talk about some of the different themed shows, nighttime spectaculars, and attractions from each individual theme park. Now, of course, we gotta start at Magic Kingdom. Now, of course, Magic Kingdom opened up in the 70s, but in 2002, for me, Magic Kingdom was my first exposure to a Disney theme park, I believe, or it may have even been Animal Kingdom. As I think back on my Disney trips, and Magic Kingdom had some really cool things, and of course, a lot of Magic Kingdom has changed. but there's actually a lot that's still there. Like for instance, the Jungle Cruise is still there. Cinderella's Royal Table in the castle on the second floor is still there. It's a Small World is still there. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, Space Mountain, of course, that opened with the parks. But there were a couple of things that I loved back in 2002 that I know some of you listening and watching will feel the nostalgia with me because we miss these things just like everybody else does. Now, of course, I got to tell you about when you go down Main Street and you watch the Castle Show. Now, of course, there's been so many, really, for me, three different types of castle shows or different versions of castle shows that have happened at Cinderella Castle. One of them being Dream Along with Mickey, which was one of the latest ones that they did before they did the Royal Friendship Fair at the Magic Kingdom in front of Cinderella Castle. But if you go back even before that to 2002, you had Cinderella's Royal Celebration. Now that show, of course, featured more princesses rather than it did Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck or Goofy as the shows do now. Cinderella was really a big part of that show at that time. And of course, the fairy godmother would always appear at the top of Cinderella Castle, right over her railing, right out the window, and there would be an interaction moment within that show. Lots of great magic in that show. Now, if we talk about parades, though, parades, there was one parade. It was Remember a Dream Come True. I think it was Celebrate a Dream Come True, if I'm not mistaken. Could be Remember. Again, it's hard to remember a lot of this, but it was Remember a Dream Come True parade, and that for me was one of my favorite parades of all time. To see the princesses come down and then Mickey and Minnie and all of my favorite Disney pals come down. Again, if you know again really the name of it's escaping me of what that parade was. I believe it was Remember a Dream Come True parade. But if I'm wrong, comment down below and tell me what the real name of that parade is, and I will give you 1000% credit for correcting me. But again, you have things like that that for me were some of the staples because back in again, and I've said this before, with the Make-A-Wish Foundation and what I've been able to experience with Disney, I was really treated like royalty. So I got to have the accessible seating for that parade right on Main Street, and that was really cool for me to experience that. And of course, for me, one of the things, and I know for many people, one of the things that we really do miss the most, and I only saw this one time, but I know many of you, this was iconic for you for Magic Kingdom, was the Wishes Nighttime Spectacular fireworks show at Magic Kingdom. Now, of course, that is one that was it was before projections were even a thing at Disney. And so I know a lot of people when that retired and Happily Ever After came on, were a bit skeptical about that, and I can understand the skepticism behind the change of a fireworks show. And yeah, I think that was probably a couple of those most nostalgic things for me. Of course, you have Mickey's PhilharMagic, which is still there and still going very strong. Has a little bit of change, but not too much change. It's a Small World still there. Peter Pan's Flight is still the same one that we always remember. Again, these are rides and attractions and shows in Magic Kingdom that I think have really stood the test of time. Some of them they they needed to grow and to evolve. But again, those are some shows that I know that we as Disney fans and attractions that we as Disney fans really miss. And so I understand a lot of the frustration from fans all around who have been a part of that Disney legacy and seeing Happily Ever After come on. But I want to encourage people, whoever's listening or watching right now, uh, again, like I keep saying, and I've said this a few times in other podcasts, to just really keep an open mind of the changes because I think the changes in Disney are evolving and they're getting better. Again, these things are nostalgic. Even Happily Ever After is nostalgic for people now that we're a little bit skeptical about losing wishes and then transitioning into Happily Ever After for a nighttime spectacular. But again, these are things that I think all of us Disney fans can appreciate, from wishes to the castle show to all the other attractions. Again, I'm excited to see what Magic Kingdom is going to look like further in the future, and I hope that all of you are just as excited as I am. And of course, we have to talk now about our next theme park, and that is Disney's MGM Studios. Now, as soon as I say Disney's MGM Studios and give you that pause, I can tell you right now that some of you are confused of what Disney's MGM Studios is. So let me clarify for those of you that are new here. That is Disney's Hollywood Studios now. Now, the reason why it's called Disney's MGM Studios, or what reason why it was called MGM Studios and now it's called Hollywood Studios, was actually that Disney's MGM Studios was supposed to be the park where movies were made. And actually, there were a few sound stages where Disney live action shows were made on the lot in Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is now currently named Disney's Hollywood Studios. But in MGM, back when it was named, there were actually some shows. And so, really, there was more of a movie nostalgia theme. So, when I think about Disney's MGM Studios, or for those people that have not grown up with Disney like I did, I think about Disney's Hollywood Studios. You have attractions like, of course, Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, which is still there. But I don't know if you guys have seen the report lately. It's actually changed a little bit because of an injury. It was all over social media and all of that. And so that show has changed a little bit, modified, and a lot actually. And I know some people were a little upset about that, but of course, Disney has always made it a priority to have safety first for their guests and their performers, and of course, so they could not continue a show in the current or in the previous form that it was in at the beginning of the show. They changed the intro with Indiana Jones getting ran over by that ball hit rolling on top of him. Unfortunately, a crew member did get injured in that attraction or in that show. So they unfortunately had to modify that. But again, who knows what's going to happen with Indiana Jones in that particular area. But again, Indiana Jones is still there. But back then, I don't know if you guys remember, but I was a big fan of a stunt show there, another stunt show, because there was two. There was Indiana Jones, but then there was also Lights, Motors, Action Extreme Stunt Show. Now, this one was another movie making experience. It was an outdoor amphitheater type of experience. It was actually right in front of and kind of off to the side of where Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is today. So it was kind of actually even further back than that. It was actually in the place where Indiana Jones, not too far from Indiana Jones, stands still to this day. And that was really cool because that involved cars, and you got to see motorcycle chases, fireworks, fire, special effects. And you really got to see how movies were made. And that was a really high energy show. But of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention everybody's favorite ride, which unfortunately was replaced several years ago, and that is, of course, the Great Movie Ride. Now, the Great Movie Ride took you through some of the most greatest Hollywood films, but eventually, in the attraction, you got your car hijacked by a robber. Now, there were two different versions of this, and some people, I've always gotten the version of the like 1960s gang member. But some of you guys have gotten the Wild Wild West. And that was something cool that they changed. Every car didn't get the same experience. They either got the gang member or they got the Western experience of getting hijacked. But of course, good always wins in the end. And your tour guide, which was really cool about that experience, having a real life tour guide, eventually won the day and eventually led you on to your journey to the finale of your experience in the Great Movie Ride. And of course, the Great Movie Ride had movies such as The Wizard of Oz, It's a Wonderful Life. I'm sure I can't remember all the Singing in the Rain was a big one actually. Come to think of it. Again, that attraction, I know many of us miss that attraction, but of course now in 2026, that is replaced by Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which by the way, still uses kind of the same track system, but of course it is also trackless, which for Disney now again, updating with technology and the times, that's something new for Disney. That was really the first attraction that they did for a trackless ride system. But again, I know that we all missed that ride, and I know we wish it could come back. But there are some specific nods in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. So next time you are on your Walt Disney World trip, let's see if you can spot some things out of the Great Movie Ride. Now, of course, when we talk about some of the other attractions, there were always these trolley shows that would roll by with comedians and all that. Um, and of course, one of my favorite shows at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which is still there, and is actually one of these standing things that is still the same as always, is Beauty and the Beast live on stage. And of course, Beauty and the Beast takes place in the storyline. It's like a condensed version of the original animated film. And of course, there's been many adaptations, or there was really one adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, which is the live action film, which I actually love as well. And I know a lot of people don't, but I actually loved it. And so, yeah, Beauty and the Beast was another one of my favorite shows that is still there today. Of course, back in the day, again, I was 7. If you went to the animation courtyard, you would see Playhouse Disney Live on Stage, which eventually became Disney Junior Live on Stage, which actually coming very soon, and probably actually there by the time this podcast is aired, or by the time you're listening to this podcast in whatever year or whatever time you were listening to this, is Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live on Stage. So again, that show as well had a lot of adaptations and different changes. For me, it was always Bear in the Big Blue House. You had Stanley, you had Roly Poly Oly. Eventually, it became JoJo's Circus. So again, for 7-year-old me, that was one of the most nostalgic shows to see Bear in the Big Blue House live on stage, to really feel like you were actually watching Bear, not on your screen, but actually in person. That was always a fun, nostalgic show. That was a really big highlight for me growing up. And now, of course, when we talk about nighttime spectaculars as well in Hollywood studios, really two of them stood out to me the most. And again, I'm just giving you guys a few. There are so many things. Of course, we got to give an honorable mention to Muppet Vision 3D, which is since uh, been actually removed and it's getting replaced by Monstropolis. That was even before. I mean, Muppet Vision 3D, if I'm going to speak on that real quick, Muppet Vision 3D back in the day was before they had Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You didn't see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge way back in the day, so it's kind of cool to see that Muppet Vision 3D, even when Galaxy's Edge was being built, was still going on and still doing the original show that they had always done. Now they had updated it a little bit with projections in kind of towards the end of the show, but again, it was pretty standard from the original one. But again, like I said, nighttime spectaculars. For me, really, two nighttime spectaculars actually stand out. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not talk about one of my favorite ones, which is the Osborne Spectacle of Dancing Lights, from the Osborne family Spectacle of Dancing Lights. That whole thing, if for those of you that are new and have never been to Disney in the last 20 plus years, and you're just starting to go to Disney, what the Osborne family of Dancing Lights it was kind of one of those things where uh, Christmas lights were on all the buildings in that particular area, and they would dance to music. So again, you could see. I mean, it was almost like when you would, as a child, you would go with your family to look at Christmas lights. Essentially, that's what it was. But it was a great experience. That one is one of my favorite ones again because I did, and I do today production. For me, that experience, that whole Osborne Lights experience, is one that I actually missed the most out of everything. Because again, that was a cool nighttime thing that Hollywood Studios always did, and that area was always so crowded. Before it eventually became the Muppet Vision Courtyard and all that stuff, and it became what it is now, and what it's going to evolve eventually to be. So again, those are just some of the main highlights from Hollywood Studios or MGM Studios, as I've come to know it. that really stand out to me, and I'm just excited again for all of the changes that's coming to Walt Disney World. And I'm excited to see what Monstropolis and the Monsters Inc. ride that's coming in is going to eventually be like in the future. Now, of course, we got to shift gears and we got to talk about Animal Kingdom. Now, of course, Animal Kingdom, a lot of the construction is happening now. I know they're building some things, and we'll go over again some of the things that are coming up in the future in a future episode of the Disabled Podcast. So stay tuned for that. But Animal Kingdom back then, honestly, even today, most of it has not really changed. I mean, you still have like Kilimanjaro Safaris, which is still the same ride it's always been. You didn't have the Expedition Everest back then, though. At least not to my knowledge. Back then, it was not too much different, but a couple highlights that I did want to mention um, in this one was, of course, for me, Festival of the Lion King, which is still there. But also, there was one more, and that was It's Tough to Be a Bug. Now, of course, that was in the Tree of Life, and that had been running there since the beginning of Animal Kingdom, since the Animal Kingdom had opened, or since the movies had come out years and years ago. Now, of course, being in a wheelchair and having paralysis from the waist down and not being able to sit in one of the seats to get the full experience, I never really understood a lot of the really the feeling that you get when sitting in one of those seats. I only got to see the 4D projection and then the big animatronic um, of a flick up at the top, and then I can't remember the other bug's name. Please forgive me on that. I know people are going to come after me. Um, but if you know the name, please comment the name below and tell me what the name is, because again, I have not seen that movie in quite a long time. Um, but yeah, It's Tough to Be a Bug was a very interesting one for me. When I was 7, I was afraid of that attraction and show, just because I don't know, just something about it for me was scary. Again, I was 7. I was a young kid, and yeah, so I think that was one of the creepiest shows um, to me. But of course, for every Disney fan that's gone to Emerald Kingdom, that was the best show for you guys. And honestly, looking back, I have to agree. As I'm getting older, I have to agree that that was one of the best shows, which now is actually replaced by Zootopia Better Together, which is a different type of show. So if you've been to the new Zootopia show, please comment down below and let me know what you think of it. And of course, we got to talk about our last theme park, and that is Epcot. Now, of course, Epcot, we still have the World Showcase. We still have some opening day attractions of Epcot. So we have Figment, Journey of Imagination. We still have Test Track, which just got updated with some brand new technology, which is actually reminiscent, according to sources online, of the old General Motors. And it's kind of looking at the future of driving and all that. I have yet to go to Epcot and see what that is like. But if you've already been, comment down below and tell me what it's like. But of course, I got to give a couple honorable mentions. Of course, I've talked about Journey into Imagination with Figment already, and that was a really cute kids. It was really silly kids ride. That is honestly nostalgic for me even today, and years later, that's still there. Of course, you have Spaceship Earth, which really has not changed that much at all. It's still the same attraction it's always been. And then you have attractions such as one that I've only been on like twice, and that was Ellen's Energy Adventure. Now, of course, this started out the attraction itself, if for those of us that remember, but if for those of us that are new, let me explain that. It started off with you watching like Circle Vision of Ellen DeGeneres on Jeopardy, uh, and it kind of goes through a little thing. You get eventually in the dream, Bill Nye the Science Guy comes into play. And then what would happen after that little short film was over was you would continue on to the second part of that, which really the circle vision type style projection was really like a pre-show that would lead you to the actual ride. So then you would actually get in a ride and the ride vehicles, and you would actually be traveling back to prehistoric times, which honestly, that ride for me was very interesting. But again, I was young. I think that one I actually went on later on, probably in my late teens. But again, those are just some of my favorite highlights from Walt Disney World back when I was growing up. And many of you have memories of when you were growing up as kids. And some of you are even sharing it with your grandkids now, and they're making memories for themselves. So I just wanted to do a quick throwback episode for the last about 25, 30 minutes and just reminisce on some of the best rides and attractions from our Disney vacations that we remember as children. Well, guys, that's all the time I have for this week's episode of the Disabled Podcast. Join me again in 2 weeks on Saturday night, 7:30 p.m., back to our normally scheduled programming for another episode of the Disabled Podcast. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll see ya.
Real soon.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Disabled Podcast. Be sure to use our hashtag the Disabled Podcast when sharing this podcast to all of your social media platforms. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see ya real soon.